Oh, all right,
Yeah,
okay,
I don't know what's going on, nothing
looking
growing.
good. No, nothing eventful for holidays? Any shootings, Jim?
No, it's pretty quiet, actually. Some attorneys shot each other at Long Beach, but,
Yeah, that was on the news.
That's a blessing.
well, somebody thinks so, yeah.
Attorneys shooting attorneys?
Pulls the competition a
This
little bit,
just in.
so, you know.
Yes.
That's fun.
So, you know, for us, we take a pretty long break. Pre-Thanksgiving for us is the last weekend that we go. We used to do a December tournament, one or two,
Yep.
you know, but one thing I will tell you that, you know, everyone's out there navigating their own path, and the amount of teams that will play through December and keep it busy, and this feeling of like, I'm not doing anything, I have to do something.
Right,
You know, we've been off 2 weeks, we gotta play.
Right. More is
You know,
better.
oh my gosh, I'm ready to get back out, which I get it, I guess, I don't know, at some point, we're all kinda like that, really gung ho and wanted to play every week, used to be a little more.
I think it's more than that too, I think there's a lot of teams that, you know, they're really afraid of losing their kid, and they most of them.
exactly.
Well, it's a reality.
Probably will, and probably will.
Well, it's a reality of today's market, because the
Yeah.
reality is that people are always working their angles and stuff, but is that any way to live?
No, you can't, it's not, you don't
It's
wanna do that.
fear-based living,
Yeah.
Right.
and fear-based coaching, I mean,
I never worried about it, I just, if they wanted to go, I always figured, I'd get another kid, I'll find one.
So to coaches out there that some of them, I don't want anybody to be afraid of this, do things because you're afraid of that, you know, I don't think that's really your goal, and you really take a look at yourself and maybe set a goal for 2018
Yeah.
to kind of not do things based on that. I mean, the reality is,
Mhm.
there's a food chain, and I know it's common that someone will say, they took my players, but really, nobody takes your players. Your players choose. I know it's hard, because it's like someone breaking up with you,
Yeah.
they choose to leave. So you need to know where you're at on the food chain, be honest with yourself. If you're on a scale from 1 to 10, about a 5 or 6 average team with a number 8 or 9 pitcher, well, you're probably gonna call me sometime in the summer and say, somebody just took my pitcher, and I don't have anyone to go to the qualifier with, but my advice would be, and the way you guys weigh in on this, is know that you have that. I always say, you know, it would be great to have Celine Dion singing at Shakey's Pizza, but it really doesn't fit. She needs a bigger stage, and so if you have players be pay grade, be prepared, and then at the same time be out and looking for other players. So when one leaves, replace them.
One thing I've always lived by is I want players that want to be here. And we always used, I don't like time off, but I also want to take an opportunity to advance our team somehow. And that's when we do our evaluation time, where we look at our team and we try to figure out, is this a team I want to have moving forward?
And this is around when December hits?
Right after pre-Thanksgiving tournament, that's kind of, we also do one-on-one conversations with kids. We try to tell them, because you have an idea what your team's gonna be like when you recruit them, and after a first month, second
Like the
month.
progress report.
Right, and basically at this time, we're saying, well, this girl isn't quite what we are, or this girl's a little bit better, or she's gonna be better at this position. But to me, you want your team develop so you can win games different ways.
Right.
And the conversations, people are usually scared to death to tell kids, to cut kids or whatever. Basically, you just want to be honest during those conversations, and then I think it kind of takes care of itself.
Because it's really a disservice to them if you allow things to play out and the role isn't their form, and they're just kind of, they become a figure, but
Exactly.
they're not really getting anything out of it. I mean, the biggest thing I think we would agree is that we want our kids to gain experience, right? I mean, it's, you know, until they're juniors or seniors where they're really polishing their game. Now, experience by in our minds versus, you know, a parent of a player at 14 and under for the first time, you know, are they even realizing that even when your kid is playing 1 out of 3 games, you're still getting 150 at-bats a year. You're still playing 1 out of 3 games is still 40, 60 games a year. I mean, it's still a lot. Now, I know we want to play every game, but I don't know, guys. I had 16 games. You know, how much did we really hit growing up or anything, or, you know, we didn't have it year round or anything like that. And I think that's something that it's important for people to understand that, because You know, find something and reevaluate at this time and make sure that you're in the right position, because this is, for me, the last time you can move.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Whatever you do from here on out, you should be in it for the long haul.
Yeah, I've been going on 18 years with our team now, and we've had very few kids ever leave this program. We've only probably asked one or two to leave, where we've instigated that. And then the rest have been, I never felt bad about it, because they were saying, you know, I don't think I've got a starting spot on this team, and I think I can get one somewhere else, and I'm good with that.
Yeah.
That's a good move for them, probably.
Even a couple that might have seemed a surprise at the time, as time played on, we realized later it was the best,
Yeah.
it was the best decision.
Yeah, a couple of times, we lost, Katie Cochran was on our team, and she left our team before, right around this time.
Right.
And, you know, you're thinking about, boy, this is a huge loss, because Katie was a phenomenal
Is that when she
player.
went to American Pastime?
No, she went to, a team in San Diego.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't Tom Dodd's team, it was another team in San Diego.
Well, she had moved a lot as a youngster.
And I
Sure.
give you guys credit for really changing,
He's
changing
the one
her.
that did that, I mean, he was.
Shout out to you out there,
He was
Katie, because
pretty
she's probably
hard.
listening.
He was pretty
Oh,
hard
she
on
was-
her.
She's a sweetheart,
She was-
but I think she would be the first to admit. In fact, she posted something yesterday on her social media about, you know, I love it because I can hear her dad in her, and Katie is one of the few kids at her age, but has an old school mentality. And she's like, basically, why are we babying these kids and stressing so much fun? You know, what about having to earn positions? What about, you know, being able to be told that you didn't do this right, or you flubbed this one up, or this, you know, and you hear a lot of the other battle cry nowadays, but it was pretty interesting of her coming
I think
out there.
she's one of the hardest workers we ever.
And in a key situation, there are very few people you'd rather have up to bat with the game on the
Oh,
line.
Proved herself as one of the best hitters in the last 20 years.
But we lost not only her, we lost our number one pitcher, we lost a few things.
Whoa.
We actually, the only time we had tryouts, again, was during January. We won nationals that year. And we had a pitcher, our best pitcher during the summer, she got hurt.
Yeah.
And our team wasn't near as good as we were the last 2 years, but it was just like a perfect storm. And that's the key, being good
Sure.
that week.
Winning that championship can be completely different than how good your team is, the talent of the team. Look at the Oklahoma-Florida series this last year.
Right.
You know, most people would say Florida was the better team, right? And Oklahoma absolutely deserved to be the national champion, the way they played that series and the way they played up in championship play. That's the beauty of the championship. I think that one of the takeaways I'd like our coaches out there to hear from us is that we've all lost players. You know, we didn't start where we're at now, and you often bring up, you know, the exodus of '96 when our players, you know, you all knew that they were going because you've been around longer than I have. I was sitting there as a green bean thinking, why would they leave our team? Which is 1996, and we had a pretty good little ball team.
Oh, yeah,
And then
great team.
most of them left, and for the right reasons. You know, it took me a few years to understand that, but they absolutely did that. So I'd want people to understand that it happens, and rather than be angry and resentful and then spend your time on social media and on your conversations talking bad about people and bad mouthing, you know, I don't know, I always want to say someone's higher on the food chain. Sometimes, hey, a lot of people make decisions that they think is in their best interest and they find out later it's not. You know, so let things play out, but the best thing is to know where you're at on the food chain, and if you're susceptible to maybe losing some players, be ready to replace them. Because ultimately, how did we all get here? I think that's really important, so evaluation time, and then how about now? Do you generally play in December, or do you not?
No, never played in December. I haven't played in December for years. And the few times we did, I wish we wouldn't have.
Now, 5 out of our 6 listeners just gasped because they're like, what? Because they're playing 2 and 3 weekends in December right now. Aren't you, people?
The one thing is, we always had a weather type issue there too. We did, not as bad as obviously this year, we had really good weather.
Just that little bit of cold.
But it was a lot cold. And just, it was really tough. And a lot of times, you weren't playing against the best teams, because you're playing in a different type of tournaments. And so you're playing against, in some of these tournaments, and you got games spread out through the day. Just a lot of negatives. as far as
So
that.
what advice would you give our coaches gaining experience?
I would use that time, but I might use it for something else. Try to get your team better in certain areas. I'm a big one on making practices productive. And, you know, sometimes there's teams that just have a generic practice and the same way every time. To me, I think you want to get something out that's gonna make your team better in some way. Like we talk about practices during the high school season.
Right.
And that's a whole new other challenge.
Well, we're gonna work, so December, basically, people start to take more time off. You know, fight that, whatever it is that goes on inside you that feel like you
You
have a
might-
couple of weekends off and you have to be doing something all the time. See your family, plan a vacation. Jim travels usually around the world every other year, something like that,
Every
or,
other year.
you know, but spread things out. You're not gonna hate yourself. If your team's getting picked apart while you're gone for 2 weeks, then you probably didn't have the team that you really, probably could work on your culture a little bit more. Get through the holidays, cause here we are. Now, January, we will play. We start to pick up a little bit, not that it's the most productive play, but we play 2 to 3 weekends in January. We used to play all the way through, well, I don't say the ASA.
February.
I always called the ASA weekend. It was the second weekend in February that we played.
Well, I had
It
the
was
February
around the Super
tournament
Bowl.
also.
Yeah.
Yeah, we played that one
And then
just before the
we
Super
did
Bowl.
your tournament, and, so January gets into, because we convene, and there's a little bit of recruiting in January.
If you have some players, now's the time to kind of try them out and see how they're
Sure,
gonna
yeah, a
fit.
little bit
Yeah,
there, a little bit
with the
of
team.
marketing with your team, but, I think it's not a heavy recruiting month in the sense that people need to be worrying about showcases and getting your team in the right spot in January. What we usually see are college coaches checking on specific players that they already have a relationship with and make sure they're in good standing, because most college teams are getting ready for their season. They start at the beginning of February. So don't look at January as this big need to have to play, but whether you're gonna practice or get a couple of weekends in. And then we shut down now around Super Bowl weekend, Don?
Yeah.
Pretty close to that?
Just, well, before that even, no, yeah.
And then we shut down, and now what we're gonna be getting into is, so for the high school age kids, okay? So freshmen on up, so 14 on up, they are soon gonna be entering 7-day-a-week softball.
Right.
And when would you say that starts, beginning of March?
It's starting actually earlier than that now because
About the
of,
20th of February.
But
Yeah.
the first high school game is around mid-February,
but
late
the practices
February.
start, yeah, the practices start mid-February.
Yeah, now, and the reason I bring this point up is because now your kids are gonna start getting taxed, they're gonna start getting, you know, they're gonna be throwing every day, they're gonna be running, all high school programs are different, so now so we tend to give our team the whole month of February off.
Right.
Let them kind of feel what's going on with their, with their situations in high school, and then we'll bring our team together, once or twice in March, kind of doing every other week deal, and at that point, we're kind of sensing their health, not just their physical health, but their mental health. So take me up through the timeline of like February or March for you historically, where you're.
That's the same way we would do it, and then February twice, usually April 3 times and May 4 times, pretty
Okay.
much. But then you got a different challenge when you're looking at, if you have players from San Diego or Arizona,
They can't practice.
and they can't practice.
Their hands off.
Right,
And so what do we say to the people like, what does that do? I mean, we've all had to work with that.
right, and it is, it's, what's important to me is having a core group at practices so you can work on things. Like your catcher, obviously, your middles, your infield in general. So you can work on situations, you can work on communication
We
aspects.
bring them in different time slots throughout the day, or?
I like the team aspect, I understand that, and I'm not against that at all, but I like to be able to work on, a combination of things that time, where we can work on, some of our plays, some of our things we haven't been able to spend the time on during the season. And, you have to be wary at that time too, you guys have had
every single game. And one thing I would
recommend, and you guys do a good job of that, is developing a relationship with the high school coaches that your kids are on. And not a negative one either, you don't wanna be that at
No,
all.
there's no need for it.
Don,
He's great at
really
it.
good that.
but I think it's important to go out, show support for your kids,
Oh, yeah.
and also understand what they're going through. And the one thing I would communicate with kids going into high school, whether you're a good program or a bad program, is get something out of it. And one problem, let's say if you're a pitcher, you might have a high school coach that can get away with calling, let's say, 2 different pitches instead of throwing that change up as much as she should. Some people are used to playing a different position defensively. And so those are things that allows you to see them in a different position. But it's just working on those little things, getting that communication with the coaches. If they have a tournament up in Laughlin, which is a great venue for coaches to go out and watch a whole bunch of their players at one time.
John, how would you describe that communication takes place with a coach when you walk up to a dugout or going to watch a kid in high school? Or...
Yeah, the first time I had a real problem with it was at Los Alamitos High School. Rob wasn't there then, but I had a pitcher, who was a very good pitcher, and I had a third baseman who was very good. And the coach there had told them, you can't practice with your travel ball team. So they told me, I'm sorry, we can't practice with you. And so I thought, geez, these are key kids for me. So I went down to the school when they were having a practice after
Good for you.
and I just got the guy aside and I said, hey, I'm the guy that has the travel team the kids play on, and I'll tell you what, you just arbitrarily said they couldn't come and practice, but why don't you come and watch one of my practices? And then if you think that's the wrong thing for your kids, okay, we can talk about that. But at least come and watch.
Why? Right.
And, because we didn't throw or anything, like
Right.
you mentioned, the arms get used so much. So we did the drills and put the ball in the bucket and, didn't do very much throwing. And so he came and watched the practice, we didn't, do crazy things or anything like that. And when it was all done, I said, well, do you think I'm stressing the kids here too much? And he said, no, that was pretty good. And that was it. He said they can practice.
And the
So,
big point there is
It's just, you
don't,
gotta go work with people.
don't confront them,
Oh, heck no.
you know?
No, they probably made this decision not based because they don't like you or anything like that. They're afraid their kid is gonna
Gonna
get hurt.
exactly.
I mean, it's critical to them. They've got a
That's the main
season
reason.
where they're trying to win their division and everything. So, you gotta understand that part about it with them, and then usually there's a path you can take that's good for both of you.
And it's usually not the best time when they're talking to their teams and talking to their parents and they're in that moment on the horse.
No,
and
no,
boom,
no.
boom, boom, because that's when they're in that,
And you
they can be that
don't-
sarcastic a-hole that time or
Don't do
whatever
it
it
on
is.
the
It's-
phone. You go and meet people
Yeah.
and
I
meet
like
them
that.
face to face.
So this is
Right.
political advice that, again, I want our coaches to understand that there's purpose for these conversations. The political advice that you're getting, I tell our coaches all the time, you've gotta have at least 5 different hats that you're gonna wear, or at least have people help you wear if you're gonna pull off coaching in today's world, and the political hat is one of them. Watch what you say, how you say it, and who you say it to, because if you think the softball world isn't capable of blackballing you and making your life even harder, because it can, and so the dividing lines politically are in our culture just like everywhere else, so, and I've seen Don do it numerous times, that's why his tournaments are successful, I've said it over and over, and he's heard me, he walks up to people, he shakes their hand, he says something to them, and you're no lesser of a person because you do that, or you don't have to walk in with your
Well-
testosterone in front of you.
You go and talk to guys that have been doing this for years that have got kind of not very good teams. But they've done it year after year after year. And those guys, they do a heck of a job. They're not getting the best kids, no, but
Right.
they keep doing it and they make kids better and they put a product on the field. And those guys need to know that. So you go down and say, thank them for coming to your tournament.
That's great. One thing too, I think that some travel coaches aren't aware of is and they should kinda understand the high school rules if you can. What they allow you to do, what they don't allow you to do in general, what CIF does. And there's a misnomer, and I
Now,
almost,
coaching high school, how many years for you?
close to 30.
Ooh, so you got a little experience.
So, but one thing, you hear travel golf coaches wanna have games between another team, but they say there's no umpire there, so this is legal. And that's not true at all. You cannot do that.
So scrimmaging another team
Right.
without officials, right?
Exactly. Some people think that, because I see that email from, they say it's, because it isn't, I've called CIF on this several times. Even though it's kind of a nebulous area, it's still, don't get in that position where you're gonna.
Well, you're putting your kids in jeopardy. is what you're
Exactly.
doing.
Sure.
And this is, to some kids, I know like they downplay, high school, but it means a lot when those kids are playing at their school.
Absolutely.
When they've got a
And
bunch
for
of
their
their
city,
friends.
yeah.
I
And,
mean,
and
they got
the
newspaper.
local newspaper, they're getting write-ups in the local newspaper all the time. How would you like that? I think it's
Yeah.
great.
We've never discouraged playing, in fact, when asked that question, or, hey, do we need that, or this coach has been a little on, you're representing your community, you've got all that, you've got their alma mater, you got a lot of those things, so it's, even, for me, I'm not against them playing other sports, I like them being versatile and playing other sports, and they have to balance and everything and know where the priorities are, but I think that's a big part of it, so definitely encourage a different
Well, and
experience.
the other thing is, I think there's still this stigma from years ago when there were a lot of pretty weak coaches in high school softball. That's not true today. There's a lot of really
Now it's
strong
becoming,
coaches.
coach the high school, so you have access to the field, so
Yeah,
now you
that's
have
a
more
big
travel
one.
ball
Look,
coaches
there's a
coaching high
ton
school
of them.
because
They're
they.
doing a heck of a job.
Did you see that a lot at Fountain Valley at all, Jim? When
Well, Valley's an interesting
Fountain
one.
Valley was a little tough.
They had the one guy for about 80 years.
Look, Kerry Baker was there a long
Yes,
time,
he
and he
was.
had,
Him and his son.
but it was what it was, there wasn't a lot of mystery to it.
Well, in Fountain Valley, they don't get the talent.
Oh, but they did have at one time.
Well,
They did,
they-
yeah,
Right
they
time.
were one of the
Lindsey
big-
Collins.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know
Let me tell you.
when my
And
last
Rocky.
daughter played there,
Yeah.
there was, I think, one girl that had a scholarship on the whole roster.
When whose daughter played there?
When Wendy played there.
Yeah.
There was one kid with a scholarship, and you look at Rob's team last year, everybody. So I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, this, but
I
you're
don't think
right.
it's fair to compare what Rob does in high school to most high school programs, so.
No, but the kids, I'm just saying, the kids at Fountain Valley, for the reasons that you've been talking about, the school pride and, your area, they enjoyed it
I'd
just
say
as
they had at
much.
least 8 to
Um,
10 players on scholarship
Oh,
last year.
Rob, no.
Fountain Valley, kids going on to school. I mean, Wendy's old now.
Oh, since then, oh, yeah, okay. I know when they were
Wendy, I know
playing.
you're not listening.
Which is, but it was a unique situation. He had been there for so long,
Yeah.
but
But that was back in those years, again, you had some coaches, as I can't, that had been at a program for a few years and ran the program the way it was. Shelley over at Marina, you had Carrie over at Fountain
Yeah,
Valley.
she did a heck of a
You know,
job.
She
you
did.
have Carrie Crouch over at Laguna Hills, who is experienced in travel ball. But now aren't you
Jerry
noticing
had
that?
one of my teams.
Gary had a great, I remember Shelley and I had,
Well, I didn't get along with her to start with.
oh, mine thing really hit when that old Robin York and Lisa DeQuisto.
Oh, I know, that was
That
crazy.
both of them with the batting average type thing. And it got so bad, I used to give lessons, I had a picture, I had one of those wind-up rats, and I put Shelley's picture on it. And I'd give kids $1 every time every time they hit the ball.
My goodness, Doug, you're gonna blow your reputation like that.
Oh,
That's pretty hilarious.
Well, unfortunately, Shelley found out about that.
They probably marched right over.
Well, we played them in the first CIF finals was in '95, and she wouldn't even shake my hand.
Wow, yeah.
Well, I used to use those fields. That was my fields when I had the Outlaws.
That's right, I remember that.
Yeah, I built that other field, that little JV field, because they didn't have one. And it didn't start out well with Shelley, but it ended up, I really respect that.
I really do too.
I really like her now,
do
too.
I think she's done a phenomenal
Yeah.
job.
Not realizing back then, so this is 20-something years ago, but the first time I showed up to watch a game, and she pulled out a shotgun and pointed at me and let me know it was her town. symbolically. I mean,
Oh,
she just,
okay.
she sent the message real clear to me, like,
Yeah.
who are you? And I was like, who is this lady? And I'll be honest with you, I mean, you know, I've got to know a different side of her, and I don't know her, like, in, really in depth or anything, but I really like her now. And know now to appreciate, I mean, gosh, how long was she at that program? I mean, that's a lot of years. of-
Well, she was, ended up as the AD, didn't she? I think?
Yeah, Marina was really
Yeah, Michelle-
strong in the
Michelle.
late eighties, early nineties, and I know their coach there at that time, she got hit with a broken bottle.
Julie,
Yeah, she had a broken
at
bottle.
Angel Stadium.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoa.
Yeah, she was a friend of mine.
Okay.
Yeah, she got quite a bit of money for that. She lost that sight in that eye. Broken beer bottle. Yeah, there was a fight going on in the stadium and the security people weren't there and she lost sight in her
Oh,
eye.
gosh. Well, since we're digressing a little bit, anybody ever remember when they were throwing beer bottles at Pete Rose in left field at Dodger Stadium?
No, I don't remember that.
Wow,
In the '70s?
Wow.
that wouldn't surprise me, but
Left field, I remember, I was on the third base side and they were throwing stuff from the stands, and it was, the other one I remember was when they were throwing coins at Reggie Jackson in right field at Anaheim Stadium. I don't know if it was around his 500th home run or something, but he was, in between pitches, he was picking up the coins. He was putting them in his pocket. All right, we'll reel it back in here. So back to the high school season. Off for February, come back. You know, again, these are just opinions, but I suggest, you know what you need to do for your team in the summer, but if you don't take into account that your kids are throwing every single day. So this was what I mentioned earlier about the seven day a week high school player. Is that me or you? Is that me? Okay. That's a lot of throwing.
right.
And so, and often as coaches, we're not even counting how many throws the kids are making, so be careful. You could get a lot of repetitions in defensively and not have them make a throw. Right, have some shag buckets behind them, hit them the ground balls, use
There's-
machines for
there's-
ground balls, you can get repetitions, work on footwork. Everything doesn't have to be a
Chalk
mile a minute.
talks, you could do chalk talks with
Yeah.
them too, have it.
And
have-
describe a chalk talk to those coaches that haven't.
Well, basically, that's basically what you could do, you could even do that with a blackboard out there, or whatever, and you're just diagramming plays, coverages,
Yeah.
how you coverage on first and thirds,
How many bunt defenses are you gonna carry this summer? Are you gonna never play in somebody's face? So in times when you know they're gonna bunt, they're gonna play it by the book and they bunt it hard and you're giving them that extra base. So you're gonna have those two different sets on your bunt
Base
defense,
running,
walk it
base
through.
running.
Yeah.
different, different ways of approaching different things.
It's a good time to use markers on the field, so that players know exactly where to position themselves, according to whatever situation. So a lot of walkthroughs, but not invasive physically.
Right.
And the other thing is make it emotionally good for your kids. I remember I always used to play the music back at Los Amigos
Oh.
and stuff, try to pull them in and get them
They loved
to feel good about what it is, especially if,
They love coming to practice.
Exactly. I try to end it on a real positive note too. You make it fun at the end. Do something different in practice.
a lot of these kids aren't playing for the ideal high school programs.
Right.
And if they're not trained to understand it, they're gonna naturally complain about things. Some of you might be doing it already because they play year round, and what's not right and what's not, but again, sometimes that's the best place for you to be. So what kind of an impact can you make as that player in an imperfect situation? I mean, if you're just gonna follow
Right.
what's going on, so kind of bring that back. And then, so use March as kind of bringing them back together, and then April, start to hit a little harder.
Exactly.
April now, we've got 2 months, knowing that Memorial Day is about the first weekend that we play at the earliest, we got about 2 months to get things ready, so.
And now, I think for some of the younger age groups too, you're getting qualifiers, a lot earlier,
Oh,
right?
yes, oh,
You're
12 and
getting those
under,
in
obviously.
in May and-
Yes, early May.
Early May,
12
you're
and
getting-
under, yeah.
Some of those other schools are out a lot earlier than California.
So you talked about the freshmen, now you got freshmen playing 14 and under.
Well,
You know.
yeah, but then you've got, nowadays, a lot of these teams, we never used to do this, but they go by years, the year of the kids, and they say you have somebody who wants to have an all, young, all eighth grade, 14 under team.
Mhm.
And we never used to do that, but they do that now, there's a lot of them. And so those guys are available to play at any time, because they're not
Sure,
in high
but
school.
what happens when those teams come in and play high school freshmen in the summer? And
Right.
kids that have been playing against high school seniors, you know, I hear that again from coaches, well, we wanna keep it here, or a dark team, or I said, you know, when these kids are a freshman, they're gonna be playing seniors in high school. So you keep them 12s playing 12s, 13s playing 13s, and then 14s playing 18s, somewhere you're gonna get a wake-up call, like, understand the integration of that is
Yeah.
important as well too, because if they're making varsity as a freshman, they're playing with girls 4 years older. And the reality is, those seniors are gonna be talking about different things, so the conversation of, they shouldn't be talking about the, you know, the reality is, if you've had a family structure where your older brother knew just what to say and what not to say, but you can't keep them away from each other because they're two different ages and you don't belong, because I get it, we try to protect things, but that's not very realistic as well. You know, so we'll start getting into, you know, again, a little more team, a little more dynamic stuff, but still weighing out, because 7-day-a-week softball doesn't really stop until mid-April.
Right.
And so 7-day-a-week softball in high school for us means the high schools are done playing on Saturdays. So they're playing Saturday tournaments all the way up till about early mid-April.
Well, actually even longer than that now. I mean, you
Yeah,
have some,
because they're still playing them when they're playing, in their conference.
So how important is that these kids get that day of rest? Remember, we're bringing them
That's
into to that hardcore 6-8 weeks of summer, where you got Colorado, you got 2 to 3 week long trips, you guys are gonna do recruiting camps and stuff, so again, we want
That's a
coaches to
fine line
really
you have.
understand, yeah.
Exactly.
And then maybe that comes into play with a little more why December is not a month to be having to play 3 weeks and be doing all these things, cause you think about it, run your horse 12 months, you know, and it starts to take its toll, and, you know, and the orthopedic surgeons aren't short on softball visits, you know, and high school sports and things like that, so, but the last 2 months now in high school, we start to
and
turn it up a little bit.
setting up your summer schedule, and ultimately, you wanna plan to be playing your best toward the end of the summer.
Yep.
And that's, you know, there's so many different variables that you cannot control, that you have to be able to make different adjustments. That's why I'm really big on being able to have depth, having a team that's athleticism, where players can play multiple positions if possible. Have like an extra catcher there that can play in another position, instead of just like only having two. You know, be in a
Sure.
situation where you can make an
You
adjustment.
need 3, even, and that third one needs to be a position player that can catch, because it's hard to pull in 3 full-time catchers all the time. But you need 3. We're in a situation now with 2, and we have a health injury, and boy, 2, it doesn't work. You got one that isn't around for whatever reason, and
Right.
you're overworking one, and you don't have that third one, and so I think that's important to have that depth. And how about depth for base running?
Oh, yeah, it's key. Those are, I think I mentioned you the year that we won nationals in 2005, when we had Donna Kerr, and one of our players, our best players, was Asia Pokuba, and she got hurt, broke her hand in nationals, but she ended up being a base runner for us in one of our semifinal game. We were playing the Choppers, and she had incredible instincts, base running instincts. We were talking about that last year, you know.
She was a heck of a second baseman, too.
Great second baseman, but
Great.
she had like that sixth set. She was always
Sure.
in the right spot at the right time. And she scored on a base hit that nobody else on her team would have.
So having the success that you've had with base running and speed at the plate, and so is it a lot of situational stuff that you do with your team, or is there certain,
Again,
what's your
it's,
advice to develop that part of a game for?
I think it's understanding your players' limits, what they're strong on. I mean, you can have somebody that's very, very fast, but it's a horrible base runner. They just get out of it.
So do
They
you
end
turn
up
some
getting out
players
quicker.
loose, give some players the green light and some not, or what's your philosophy on that?
Encourage, I try to be, you know, during the season, at different points, you wanna be, especially during the fall and winter, you wanna be super aggressive, let's say. You wanna find out what they can
Sure.
do and what they can't.
Push
do.
limits, make some outs on the
Like for-
bases, sure.
Like, well, one of the things we'll always do during the winter is we'll always have like a runner on third base, walk to the batter. We're always gonna automatically send that kid to second unless she can't run at all.
Mm-hmm.
But just to see, cause there's a lot of instinctual things involved in keeping that throw going
Sure.
long enough so that girl on third that can come in.
How many teams really know how to defense at first and third? What's the percentage?
I watch
I'm gonna say less than
colleges
10%.
basically just
Right.
give it up, just let them take second, I watch colleges.
You know instantly, as soon as the ball hits that middle infielder's hands, whether they know what to do with it or not, and 90% plus, they don't know what to do with it. Which will be in maybe another conversation that we have, but that's, you know, how do you stop the, you know, I used to think it was 12 and under, you win it just with base running alone, if you can really be aggressive and these defenses aren't developed, but what I've seen since Rob's joined us is that it doesn't start happening. So many teams are unable to defense the first and third, so the aggressive base running is really, really important.
I mentioned this girl a few different times, and Sierra Briggs on our team, that just, she has that it factory right now where she's always, no matter what, you're not gonna be able, she's gonna keep that rally, that throw along, so she's gonna be able to, not only she's gonna be safe, but our runner on third is gonna be safe, and usually she's gonna be able to take the next base too.
So will you get into some live play, some scrimmaging towards, because it's kind of a
We try-
delicate balance, you got teams now, you start to get now towards Bay, you start getting the CI playoffs, you know, you don't want your kids injured at travel ball practice, but you wanna try to get them a little heated, a little ready for summer ball, so how does that last
I like,
transition?
well, I like competition in practice. I like having offense against defense. And I think I mentioned this before, we'll spread our team into like, let's say you have 15 kids, 3 groups of 5. And that 5 is the offense, the other 10, you know, 9 on the field and one sitting out or whatever. But you'll start with different counts on the pitchers, different people on base.
And
Like-
pitchers can throw inside, outside, doesn't
Well,
matter.
you wanna control what they control to extent, because you want that pitcher, let's say, I want her to work on her worst pitch, which is her changeup.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say 1 out of 4 pitches
Has to
is
be a
gonna be changeup. You don't tell them what it's gonna be,
Sure,
but they have to be able to face that.
sure.
And then you wanna be super aggressive on the bases. The problem you run into is a sign situation, because the defense knows what your signs are. So basically,
Right.
you just wanna almost make it, your kids know that I wanna be able to really get something out of this.
Sure.
So you're gonna pick your own moments, when to go, when not to go, those.
So you're not shying away from contact, anything like that, and even though it's towards the end of high school season, you're still doing what you need to do to get your team ready?
Pretty much, yeah.
Now, have you ever had, as a high school coach, when you're at Modern Day, have you ever had a coach show up to you injured or right before CIF playoffs?
We have unfortunately.
And was there an accepting or understanding that that's what takes place at a travel ball, or was that doggone it?
Oh, you hate it, but you understand, I'm guilty of doing that myself, but.
I mean, I would like to think someone in our hands, even if they get hurt, we know, people know they're doing things they need to be doing, but not everyone is the best decision maker. And we can't, reduce all risk of our kids getting hurt. But I'm just, again, playing kind of both sides of
No,
that.
you're
because we've
exactly
dealt with
right.
that, you're in CIF and now when your kid comes up with a hamstring or this or that, and you were doing live play or it gets hit by a pitch. I mean, that was, Don and Jim know that for a long time. I wouldn't let our kids throw inside, only because I felt, you minimize risk and I like to control things. I've opened it up a little bit later on, but I think it's an interesting thing to balance. So the point that I'm making to our coaches out there is, as you get into May and you prepare for June, always just understand that you're building relationships with these high school coaches. These kids right now are playing for their high schools. It's a delicate balance between what we need for our team
Especially
going in.
during CIF,
And then once we
right.
start either at a Memorial Day or usually a week or two in June before we hit Colorado, use those 2 weekends to kind of last preparations to fill some certain things out,
Exactly.
because once our season really starts in Colorado in summer.
Yep.
And we'll do a podcast on summer play, but that week in June, late June, is really that beginning of that, like our 6-week run of championship play, where it's like, all right, everything kind of changes focus a little bit here, so.
That's when you try to stretch your pitchers out a little bit.
That's when, it's, yeah, and knowing that we want to peak at the right times, that, again, I think I had a little different approach earlier, is I wanted our kids prepared for college, so I wanted to make them tired all summer. I wanted to see how well they could play at nationals, being extremely tired and taxed. I always looked at it like softball's version of a Navy SEAL program, that they go through a little bit more. They're gonna be more tired than most teams, and then we expect them to perform at a higher level. And, at our alumni lunch last week, we had a few kids show up and from back in the day, and a few of them kind of realized that now. They didn't always realize that in the moment. It was kind of interesting to hear all those stories. But, again, and what we're trying to do here is just offer opinions and advice of experience that we've had.
I know Marty does that a lot too. He has those, that Hell Week that he runs right before Nationals.
We used to run a Hell Week,
And-
but I really don't
I
think that
don't
was
either.
that great an idea. What I ended up doing is saying, I know who I'm in a qualifier or whatever I've got going, and I know I'm gonna end up facing Gary, the Bat Busters. And I know what he can do, and I know what his slappers can do. He's one of those ones that he put it on you, and Christ, you don't know what can happen to you. So I used to just run my practice to defend that. I'd try to figure out
Exactly.
what his slappers did best, whether that was, she was bunted best or slapped best. If she bunted best, I took the bunt away from her. I said, go ahead and slap. I'm not
I like
going to
that.
beat me with the bunt. And we practiced that.
Mm.
That's what our whole practice was to defend all of that. And it worked out to be pretty
He spent
successful.
countless
Because we
hours
beat
on a
them many
2-5
times.
defense. I mean, he spent countless hours on a 2-5
2.5
defense.
defense.
Yeah.
And then we would spend that last day going through the last 4 teams, so I would go
Yeah,
through 1 or 2
exactly.
teams
I know
that,
it.
you know, were kinda out there, you didn't expect, like a Southern Force, or
Right.
someone you're not really putting on your map, but you know they're good enough to be up, and then you're gonna finish your last 2 simulated games with, you know, back then it could be the Babos, it could be Valley Breeze, it could have been, you know, someone, and you're gonna try to replicate those
Panthers,
personalities,
whatever.
put those kids under those same type of pressure. For me though, because the college game to me was always so important, is I always looked at, so this was an instance in our particular market, we have a lot of kids going on to the College World Series. And nothing makes me more proud of knowing how tired they are at that time, taking their finals, being on the road, regionals, super regionals, College World Series, and still having our kids play and perform really, really well. And again, and not that that's our all-in goal from 14s all the way up to see how many kids we get at that level, but you know, we've all had a lot of success seeing our kids play at that level. And it takes something to that kid that's mentally tougher and gets through that, because we've been doing this a long time, and I've been asking our kids at that level on what it takes to be able to be strong when your legs are gone, your minds are gone, and yet it's the most important part of the season. And now the College World Series, with the ratings, it's for our sport, it's like,
It's
it's
amazing.
the time, and so, and you look at what these kids are doing, because again, we're playing year round, and there's a lot that are going under, but the way they're playing at the end of that year is just really, really amazing, so.
We're gonna see a huge growth in softball. You think we've seen
With the
growth
Olympics
in-
and-
with the Olympics coming back,
Uh-huh.
it's coming. Once that
They
starts.
have those tryouts this week,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
But once they see them in the Olympics, the girls see them, and they will.
Mhm.
then
Team USA always bumps up the hype. It
Yeah.
doesn't stay consistent, but it always bumps up the hype, and
It
now,
really does.
you know, think what you want and have whatever opinion you want, but you gotta appreciate the fact that we had a tryout now that had all of our best players there.
Getting back to one other thing too, is that Colorado was always huge for us too. And where we would play, there was almost always the top teams. This is the first time we actually saw the top teams. You guys have it, so a lot of your tournaments, you're seeing like Birmingham and,
Oh, yeah.
and, you know, teams from all over. And,
Twice a year.
yeah, this was basically the first time we really saw people from all over the different countries, teams from Alabama and so on. We'd be in the same pools because we wouldn't play California teams in our pool. And it was an eye-opener on something, but it always made us stronger.
Sure.
I really believe if we hadn't played those teams earlier, that we wouldn't have been nearly prepared to play them
Sure.
in nationals.
And their personnel may change, but you know which programs
Mhm.
historically now are bringing up some, you know, you got your hands full when you're gonna be facing them.
Mhm.
That's a lot of them, so. Guys, we're gonna wrap it up, gonna keep these a little bit shorter, and then we'll come up with some good topics and kind of bring it in next week. We talk a little more about the USA stuff and the tryouts, like I said, it's kind of it's a different format, it's kind of interesting to see what they've done with it, but, you know, again, I hope people are taking a couple of notes, and everything is designed to provide a better experience for coaches out there, so if you're beating yourself up and you're, you know, bad mouthing and you don't realize you're doing it, listen to some of this stuff, some of the advice has worked for us over a course of time, and we will be back next Tuesday with another live broadcast.
Next Tuesday.
Right.
Next Tuesday, all right,
Why not? Why the hell not?
I love it.
It's 2018.
good,
That's right.
We're all limited in how much time we have left, so, all right, thanks, everybody.
thank you.
No.
Time